Good evening, everyone. I call this regular council meeting Monday, May the 6th, 2024, 7 p.m. to order, and to acknowledge we are on the traditional territory of the Stahelas. The next order of business is the introduction of late items. Are there any late items? Seeing none. Next item is approval of agenda. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Facio. Discussion. Any discussion on it? So as I was not part of the agenda review per the provincial advisor's recommendations, so I can't approve the agenda, as in my opinion, some of these items contradict the community charter. So I'm ready to call a question. This is for approval of the agenda. Call the question, Councillor Allen.
Yeah, just a comment, Mr. Mayor. Are you saying that you are voting against the approval of the agenda for those reasons?
That's correct.
Did you want to identify which items in the agenda concern you, or?
They'll come up as we go through the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So everybody ready to call the that I call the question? Again, it's just approval of the agenda. It was moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Facio. Again, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Passes with the mayor opposed. Next item is the adoption of council meetings. Item, excuse me, item A, that the regular council meeting minutes of April the 3rd, 2024 be adopted. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Vidal. Any errors or omissions? Seeing Councillor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking at page number, I'm looking at page number 8 of that minute and page number 8 on our current agenda. And at the bottom under section 12, there's a report from the staff regarding an OCP bylaw 1184. Oh, sorry. It's 12B, rezoning bylaw number 1193. And there's quite a long minute on that through page 9 and to the bottom of the top of page 10. My concern, Mr. Mayor, is that somebody reading these minutes in years to come will have no idea what we're talking about, because nowhere within that minute does it mention the property that we're dealing with, and it's a major project. It's the new condominium building that's proposed for the bungalow site at the end of the Esplanade, which I don't know, it's 100 units or something. And I think that it would be in order that the minutes, these minutes and any other minutes referring to a project of any size should contain a clear identifier of what it is that we're dealing with. So I would like to see these minutes amended by adding either the street address, which I think is 501 Esplanade, or the description of the former bungalow motel site to the minutes, so that people in the future will be able to know what it is we're talking about. We do the same thing when we're advertising rezonings in the paper. We're required to show a map and a street address. The legal description doesn't mean anything to most people. And I think if the minutes are going to be clear, they need to identify the property, and the civic address or the general description is probably sufficient. So that's my suggestion for the minutes of April the 3rd. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a seconder on the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Jackson. Any further discussion on the amendment? Councillor Facio?
Just a correction, I believe it's 510, not 501, but I would ask if through you, Mr. Mayor, to the staff to verify that.
Correction accepted if that's the case.
It's actually, 511 is.
511.
Yeah, 511 Lillooet.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on that, on the amendment? So I'm just going to vote on the amendment. So the amendment is to add the identifier on page 8, item 12B, which would say 511 Lillooet. Sorry. Be 511 Lillooet. So I'm going to call the question on that. All in favor? Nobody opposed? That passes unanimously. So we're back to the main motion, and that is that the regular council meeting minutes of April 3rd, 2024 be adopted as amended. Ready to call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item is item B, that the regular council meeting minutes of April 15th, 2024 be adopted. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Facio. Errors or omissions? Seeing none, ready to call the question. All in favor? Nobody opposed? Passes unanimously. Next order of business is the business arising from the minutes. Do we have any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, I have a couple here. So page 3. Why do I have page 3 written here? Yeah, page 3, sorry. Item 5. The business arising from the minutes. This is a verbal report of 2 resolutions from the March 8th, 2024 special closed meeting. And the first resolution was that staff be directed to put out a request for proposals for an independent contractor to assist the village in improving its occupational health and safety program and in resolving any outstanding complaints of harassment, bullying, and breaches of the village's code of conduct policy. And just my question is to the Chief Administrative Officer for an update for that, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Wood. We've engaged our OH&S consultant, and we're just finalizing the details of the terms for their engagement. And I've reached out independently to a couple of facilitators, and I've reached out to 5, and I have had a response from 3. 2 are unavailable, and 1 I have in discussion. The RFP has not been let. I'm just doing a little bit of a different process to determine who's available. Because obviously we want to try and seek the most qualified individual.
So that's just on the first part of that resolution, or are you talking about the second part?
Yes, sir, that was the second part.
That was for the second part. So just for the record, I'll read it out. That staff be directed to put out a request for proposals for an independent contractor to guide discussions between the mayor and blank with the goal of creating an improved working relationship. So just to clarify that again.
Yes, my apologies, Mayor Wood.
So there's no RFP that's been put out for that yet.
At this time, no.
I would hope that both of those would be moved up in time being more of the essence. It's already from March the 8th and we're at May 5th.
Mr. Mayor, could I have a comment on that?
Sorry, Councillor. You're welcome to speak when I'm finished.
All right, thank you.
The other item I had, which was on page 8. And that was, excuse me, page 8, item 12A. And that's the report of the planning consultant dated March 4th, 2024. Read the official community plan bylaw number 1184, 2022. And my question, I know our planner is not available to answer this, but maybe the deputy, maybe the chief administrative officer can answer it. And I guess one of the concerns, so the official community plan was officially passed 2 months ago. But there was bear with me a second. At the September 20, sorry, at the June 19th, 2023 meeting of a previous OCP reading, the planner had made note that we have 2 items that need to be dealt with ASAP upon the adoption of that. So I want to make sure that these 2 haven't been left, because these are 2 very important ones. And the one was the development approval information, which he called the DAI. And the other one was the design guideline policy. So it's my understanding with the new OCP, these things have been removed from the OCP process, and they'll be supplementary to the OCP. But to have an OCP out there right now without those 2, I would think are pretty critical. And as I recall from my notes here, the planner at the time said that they need immediate attention. So the Chief Administrative Officer want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Wood. Just to clarify, our contract planner was available, but subsequently has been made unavailable. To speak to that, that would be with our contract planner at this time. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to communicate with him, so I can't provide you with an update, but I will be sure to do that first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, I'd like to put a motion on the table here then, so that council directs staff, with time being of the essence, to for policies for the development approval information referred to as the DAI, and also policy for the design guidelines. And again, that's per the June 19th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Jackson. Any further discussion on the OCP? Councillor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you'll have to excuse me. I was not on council 11 months ago in June 2023. But I just want to be clear that what you're telling us is that we had design guidelines within our official community plan, but when we adopted OCP 1184, we repealed that plan and have lost all of our design guidelines. Are we now in a situation where there are no design guidelines in force in the village of Harrison Hot Springs?
That's my understanding, yes.
Well, I don't know. I find that very difficult because they're such an essential part of the OCP, because when any development is considered now, then we are obliged by law to review that development and make a determination as to whether it does or does not comply with the design guidelines. By having a community plan without any design guidelines, it means there's absolutely no criteria for the form and function, the color scheme, the massing, and all of the other aesthetic considerations that go into it. And those are very important to a small village like Harrison, based on tourism, that it remain visually attractive. So I'm trying to understand how come we can have an OCP without design guidelines, because it is the design guidelines that actually what people get to see and what people ought to know what our objectives are with design guidelines with construction in Harrison. So I'm just confused as to how we can have an OCP with no design guidelines. Were we advised, or were you advised, that they had to come out of the OCP for some reason? Or why were they not included in the OCP?
I think that was the new process within the OCP, and it was taken out as to be, I believe, a supplementary policy. And I think the rationale behind it, it was easier to make changes to it without having to go through the whole process of an OCP change to it.
But Mr. Mayor, the former official community plan that was repealed 11 months ago had the design guidelines as a schedule. And it would have been very simple just to add that same schedule to the new bylaw and maintain those design guidelines. And I'd like to suggest to you as Chief Executive Officer that you might consider instructing the planner or the staff to find a way to add the schedule containing the design guidelines from the old OCP to the new OCP so that we have some design guidelines in place, even if the intention is to replace it with some different design guidelines. To me, it seems inconceivable that you have a bylaw that does not contain the essential elements of what it is we're trying to achieve in the village visually. So I'm just making that as a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vidal. Oh, sorry, and then Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Thank you, Mayor Wood, through you to Councillor Allen. Last term, we spent considerable time with our planner and with the public in designing the new OCP. And as Mayor Wood has pointed out, it was upon the recommendation of the planner that those guidelines be removed and taken out of the OCP and a different policy be developed. And as Mayor Wood explained, the reason for that was it would be easier to amend that policy rather than having to go through an amendment of the OCP. It's unfortunate that perhaps that you weren't on council, but we did take considerable time and considerable public engagement to come up, for the planner to come up with the draft OCP, which now has been adopted. And as Mayor Wood indicated, one of the urgent issues is to have that design guideline policy developed as soon as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor. We just, yes, it was recognized it would be a standalone document, the design guidelines. I'm not sure whether you just want to table this to the next meeting and give an opportunity for the staff and the planner to get together and then come back with a report to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen, or sorry, Jackson. Did you have any comment?
Comment.
Yeah, thank you. So the motion on the table is that staff be directed, with time being of the essence, to create a development approval information bylaw referred to as a DAI and design guideline policy, all as per the planner's recommendations from June 19th, 2023 meeting. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody's opposed. Passes unanimously. Councillor Allen, I thought you had something you wanted on business arising from the minutes.
No, Mr. Mayor, it's okay. I think we've dealt with it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So moving on to the consent agenda. So this is just for receipt of the consent agenda. So do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Any discussion? Seeing none, ready to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody's opposed. Passes unanimously. Next item is item 7, which is delegations.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I'll pass you over to our Chief Financial Officer, Scott, to introduce Brian.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I'd like to welcome Brian Sabo. He is a partner at BDO Canada and our lead auditor, our lead auditor for the 2023 audit. Brian is here tonight to present to present the results of the 2023 Village of Harrison Hot Springs audit. After the presentation, Brian can answer any audit-related questions that you might have. If you have any questions specifically related to the financial statements, I'll be happy to answer those a bit later in the agenda. So I think Brian's on Zoom.
Let's go ahead, Brian. Can you hear me?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the opportunity to address council in respect of the audit findings report that is in your package. It looks like it's a bit sideways on my screen, so I'm not sure how it ended up that way, but in any case, I will assume that people have had a chance to read it. And so I'll go through it and hit the highlights of it, and then I'm happy to respond to any questions either along the way or at the end of the report. So I'll maybe just flip through the first couple of pages to page 5, which is the small number 5 at the bottom left corner of our report. This is the status of the audit. So we have substantially completed the audit. We've completed all our procedures and had all the review process completed as well. And so upon approval of the financial statements by council and receipt of the signed management letter from management, which we ask that it be dated and signed as of the date that we sign our auditor's report. And at that time, we'll update our subsequent events procedures to the date of our auditor's report, and then we will be in a position to sign the auditor's report, and the financial statements can then be issued. The next 2 pages cover our audit findings, and these mirror the audit risks that we identified at the planning stage of our audit in a report to you. The first one is management override of controls, and this is a risk that we are required to address in all audits. It's not specific to Village of Harrison Hot Springs, and the reason is simply that management is in a position, if they wanted to override controls of the organization. And in an organization like most public sector organizations, mainly that's done through journal entries where certain accounts might be overridden and entries made to them. And so what we do is review the controls that are in place over journal entries. We review the transactions that are inherent in the journal entries and make sure that there's backup for all of them and that they all have a valid business reason for the entry. And so all the testing that was done in respect of that area was completed, and there were no issues noted. The second item is a risk that we are required to consider in all audits, but it is not necessarily present in all audits, and that is the risk of fraudulent revenue recognition. And we have actually rebutted this risk in respect of the audit of the village. And the reason for that is there's very little motivation and little opportunity to misstate the various revenue streams. Most of the revenue streams are fairly fixed. In particular, taxation revenue is driven by council bylaw and assessment amounts. And so it would be very difficult to misstate revenue in any case. Nevertheless, we did review the user fees and the taxation revenue and ensured that they are recorded in accordance with the transactions that did occur, including the grant revenue, some of which in some cases is restricted and can only be recognized as revenue when the restrictions are met. So we did review those as well, and there were no issues noted. On the next page, the first one on page 7 is in respect of employee future benefits. And this is a liability in the financial statements, and it's related to amounts that will be paid out in the future, either to or on behalf of employees, but it's on account of service that's already provided. And so there is an actuarial calculation that does go into it, and so the village does employ an actuary. We do communicate with the actuary. We do let the actuary know that we rely on their work and ensure that the actuary is also independent of the village, just as we are required to be. So all this testing was done, and there were no issues noted in that respect. The second item there is development cost charges. These must be recorded as deferred revenue, so a liability on the financial statements until they're spent in accordance with the requirements of the bylaw. So we do review the amounts received during the year to ensure that they're properly deferred where appropriate. And we also ensure that they are taken into revenue when the appropriate expenditures are made and not before. And so all the testing in this area was done and there were no issues noted. The third item on that page is a new accounting standard that requires a liability to be recorded for future costs that are required to be incurred in respect of the retirement of certain assets. So a typical item in respect of municipalities would be asbestos in buildings. There are requirements to remove and dispose of the asbestos in a particular manner, in a safe manner. So that will entail an outlay of cash at some point in the future. So that's one of the items. The other typical items might be foreshore leases, might be wells, and sorts of things that have legal requirements for future costs. So management undertook a thorough review of all its assets and determined which ones had liabilities in the future attached to them, calculated the amounts in respect of the future cost, and discounted them back to today's dollar amount. So we reviewed the process for identifying all of these assets and the liabilities associated with them. We reviewed the inputs, including the assumptions over inflation amounts and discount rates, and also did some recalculations that management had performed. And in respect of all of those calculations, we did not note any material errors. So I'll just maybe pause there to see if there are any questions.
Are there any questions? No, don't see any questions. Continue on, please, Brian.
All right, thank you. The next page deals with internal control matters. During the course of our audit, we do review certain internal controls. We do not test all controls, only the ones that are relevant to our audit. And if we determined that there were any significant control weaknesses, we would bring these to your attention in a management letter. We do have a number of items in our management letter in the current year. We do not consider any of those to be significant weaknesses. But when I get to the management letter, I will outline those. It is important to note with an organization the size of a village where there are minimum management positions and staffing, there is always the risk of control weaknesses due to the lack of segregation of duties that is inherent in a smaller organization. So it does require continuous diligence on the part of council in terms of review of financial information. The next page is unadjusted differences. So this is an item that was noted actually in the prior year, which crossed over last year end. And so it was not corrected in the prior year end. And it does result in a corresponding error in the current year end. The current operating statement, as of the current year end, it has self-corrected. So there is no longer an error. It's just a timing difference in terms of income recognized. The next 2 pages are adjusting entries. And these are entries that we noted during the course of our audit and advised management of the correction necessary. Some of them may have been management's doing initiation as well, but any adjustments that are done during the course of our audit, we do bring to your attention. Page 12 of our report is other required communications, and these are items that if we noted anything in respect of them, we would have a specific write-up on them. But because none of these were present during the course of our audit, there is nothing to report. The next several pages provide some recommended resources. Each of those red boxes is a hyperlink to our website. And so if there's anything of interest in there, I do encourage you to follow the links and have a look at what's there. And even if you've had a look at these in the past, they do get regularly updated. In fact, obviously the 2023 federal budget is an old link that's since been updated with our 2024 budget review. All of the other links as well, they get regularly updated. So if you have had a look at them in the past and are interested in what the update might be, I do encourage you to have a look. And then finally, in the appendices, we have the representation letter, the independence letter, and the management letter. The representation letter is a communication that we require management to provide to us outlining and putting in writing certain things that we were told during the course of our audit, either in writing or verbally, maybe within the working papers, but they're all required communications that we request we get from management. And so that will occur upon completion of the financial statements in the audit. The independence letter is a required communication from us to yourselves that confirms our independence from the organization. And then finally, Appendix C is the management letter. And in the current year, we have a couple of new items that arose. One was a lack of segregation of duties in terms of certain CFO responsibilities. Again, this is in respect of a small organization. And you can see there that the management's response to it is that all journal entries do have specific backup attached to them. They're all provided to the auditors during the audit process. So we're satisfied with the response, but just to ensure that that's brought to your attention. The second one is a lack of segregation of duties in terms of management signing their own timesheets. Again, with a small organization, it's not always possible, and management's response is that there was a short period of time when this was the case. However, that is not normally the case, and normally managers, direct supervisors do sign timesheets on behalf of the employee. So we're satisfied that management is aware, and it's not a normal course of business. And then the third one is in respect of password changes. We noted that there's currently no password expiration in terms of access to either the village's site in particular and to specific applications. So we do recommend that passwords be changed on a regular basis. And management has indicated that they have since implemented a 90-day password change requirement, and that is typical. That's what our organization does as well. So we're satisfied with that response. So with that, I'm happy to respond to any additional questions.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, did you?
No, I have no direct question. Just when I read that there are no material uncertainties, then that's fine with me. I read the report over, understand it. I think it's very well done, and I understand the problems that we have with short staffed at times, but they've done a great job, and thank you for the report.
Thank you. Councillor Facio?
Thank you, Mayor. We'd just like to thank Brian for his report, and as Councillor Jackson says, there's nothing to indicate any problems with our finances in the village, and of course that comes with a big thank you to Scott Schultz and his staff doing the financial for the village. Thank you.
Councillor Bidell?
Thank you, Mayor Wood, and I also want to say thank you, Brian, for your excellent report. I do have one question. You've mentioned a lack of segregation of duties. You appear to be satisfied that it most likely was due to a shortage of staff, and that has now been corrected. Can you just explain a little bit more for me what is involved in the meaning behind segregation of duties?
Well, I gave an example through the mayor in terms of a purchasing process. So typically in a purchasing process, you would have one person who initiates a transaction. There would be another person approving the transaction, and then separately when the cash payment is made, that would be a separate person as well. So that would be appropriate segregation, because you don't have the same person who is initiating a transaction that is then at the tail end of it making the payment. Because if that were the case, then anybody could or a certain person could initiate a fictitious transaction that has nothing to do with village business. So that's an example of it. In the case of the journal entries, it's a little bit different because it's not a cash transaction. It's actually it could be a reclassification from one account to another, or it could be recording revenue and account receivable when there is no revenue. It could be something like that. It's not as concerning as a purchasing segregation of duties. But it's nevertheless important, and I do agree with the response and the fact that there is always backup attached to the journal entries, and I'm sure they would be available for our examination at any time during the year if we asked for them.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And also to our Chief Financial Officer, thank you very much. It appears that there are no major issues, and I congratulate you on working with BDO for coming up with an excellent audit. Thank you.
Councillor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. On that same page 3 of Appendix 1, at the top of the page under Management Update, Mr. Szabo mentions the timesheets, and I suppose these are what records the days that people work and the days that people take off. My concern is that in our current organization, there seems to be no function or role for the Chief Executive Officer in overseeing that process, and I think that is wrong. I think that we do need to have financial controls. We do need to have financial oversight. And at the moment, where you as the CEO don't seem to have a role to play in any of this, I feel uncomfortable about that. I, as a councillor, rely on you being an effective CEO in order to ensure that I can carry out my fiduciary responsibilities. And if you're not going to be involved in things like timekeeping, which means approving absences, I suppose, then I feel that the democratic side of the council has lost that control, and I think that control belongs firmly in your hands, and it's not there. For similar reasons, I have concerns about the way that we manage our checkbook. Everybody on council can sign checks except me, I think, or maybe I can have good signing authority, but to me that is bad practice, because everybody's responsibility is nobody's responsibility, and we need harder rules about the signing of checks, and we don't have them. So I have a number of concerns, not about the financial statements or Mr. Schultz's work, but about the current structure of our management, and I don't feel comfortable about being able to be responsible for the stewardship of the public finances in the current system. And I just like to make that point, because I don't think I can support the approval of the audit if I'm not comfortable, and I'm not comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. So did you want to respond to any of those at all, Brian?
Well, the CEO's responsibilities are defined in the community charter, and whether they go beyond that or not is up to individual organizations. And I mean, I guess that's all I can add to Councillor Allen's comments. There was nothing that we noted during the course of our audit that indicated that there was a substantial or significant weakness in the check signing process or the contracting process. We review those controls each year. There was nothing that gave us any concern. Councillor Allen's concerns are noted, but I didn't see any of those concerns during the course of our audit.
Councillor Allen, did you have something to say? No. Okay, thank you.
No, I think I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor, for the moment. Thank you, but I will be looking at it harder in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions for you, Brian.
Mhm.
I think did you do the audit for us for the last year?
I did.
You did. So I believe at the end, at the same time here last year, I think I had just asked you a question here with regards to, and again, it's more the process and the bylaws here that we have for as far as the authorizing of contracts, large contracts, and you had made a mention, as I recall, that you were satisfied with the purchasing bylaw that we actually had in place. But since over the last year, it's come to my attention that we actually have an additional bylaw. And that falls under a requirement on the charter here, which is under the officer's authority. And under that officer's authority, there is an awful lot of financial authority given in that particular bylaw. Does that concern you at all?
No, I don't think it does. I think I indicated last year that we do review the processes, we review the controls on an annual basis. We don't look at every contract that's entered into or every payment that's entered into, but we take a selection of them. Your own policies are up to you. My role is to determine whether I can rely on the controls in the organization, and then that then informs the work that I do outside of the controls. I try not to comment on policy because it really is up to your organization.
That's extremely helpful to hear that. Thank you. And just my last question to you, can you just help me out here on if somebody suspected fraud, a whistleblower protection? What's the process? Do you have a process in place here if somebody was suspicious of some fraudulent activity?
I would expect a formal communication.
Just help me out on that, please, Brian, because I just like to hear a little bit about the process. So if somebody comes up to me with an issue with it, how does that?
Well, it depends. It depends what the issue is, because my role in respect of fraud is how it impacts the audit risk. An auditor is not qualified to determine whether fraud exists. It's outside of our expertise. Fraud is a legal term. So if there's a suspicion that fraud has occurred, I would expect that the first phone call would be to RCMP. Our role is to determine whether an act has increased the risk within the financial reporting system.
That was extremely helpful. Thank you for that, Brian. Any other questions of council? Don't see any other questions. Thank you very much, Brian, for this report. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next item is correspondence. I don't see any new correspondence here. The next item is business arising from correspondence. We have no business arising from correspondence. Next one is item 10, which is reports of the councilors, committees, committee of the whole and commissions. I'm just going to do one here first before I go around the table here. And this is item A, which is the report of the AIDS-friendly committee dated May the 6th at 2024. And I think it's an important one to see. So that's on page 53.
Pardon me, excuse me, pardon me, Mayor Wood, did you want me to read that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead,
Okay,
please.
thank you.
Yeah.
So the summary is to present resolutions on behalf of the Age-Friendly Committee for Council's consideration. The background is on Thursday, April 18th, 2024. The Age-Friendly Committee met and unanimously passed the following resolution regarding recommending council action. That council considers directing staff to research building a community hall with room for health services in the plans for the new village office. The policy considerations under the 2023 strategic plan. Priorities is encouraging a healthy, livable community to promote and enhance a healthy lifestyle for all ages.
Thank you. So I would like to, do I have a mover to, I would move that council adopt the recommendation. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Jackson. Sorry. Further discussion on this? Councillor Bidell and then Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I'm a little confused with the resolution. Is it indicating to direct staff to research costing or grant opportunities for a new village office, which would include health services. And the reason I ask that is because I believe a few months ago, a resolution was passed by council to direct staff to look into grant opportunities available for the construction of a new village office. Through you to our CAO, am I off base or?
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I can't confirm the exact resolution because I don't have it in front of me, but I do remember something similar to that. And there are, I know staff has been communicating with designers for options, but if it's council's wish to amend that, we can certainly look at these options that were brought forward by the age-friendly committee.
So Councillor Vidal, just to give you a little assurance, so this actually, the wording of this was actually drafted by the community services manager and the corporate officer. And it was, the intent was to join it on with the village office proposal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification, Mayor Wood.
I believe it was Councillor Allen next and then Councillor Fassian.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm a bit surprised at the source of this reminder, but I'm glad that that they have raised the issue of our community hall at least. Many years ago, when we had a planning meeting for the community in this hall, we recognized that this hall was not going to be big enough to handle our design population of 3,000 residents. And so we put language in our official community plan at that time, which unfortunately I think has disappeared. And that language said that we need to be planning for the future and we need to be finding a place for a new community hall. Shortly after that, the Harrison Hotel offered us the 12 lots, that is the open space beside the current village office. And we borrowed the money from MFA and we bought that land for the express purpose of creating a new Harrison Community Hall and perhaps administrative offices, post office, health center, whatever else would be developed. But we secured the land for that. And we've now, I think, paid off that mortgage and we own that land for that purpose. So what I would really like to see is that this motion be brought forward and there be some amendment or language put within our official community plan that says the village council is committed to building a new and larger community hall for the future on that land and start to make those plans. We even had one resident who made us a cardboard model of what our new hall could be like. And we need to do that because if the opportunity arises for a grant, we need to have the statement clearly in our OCP that that is our intent and that's what we intend to do. So I think that the planning for the new community hall needs to start now. It's like cathedrals. The people who build them will never live to see them finished. And we have to think ahead 10, 20 years, maybe 30 years and plan for the future because we are very short of land in the village and we have to use it very wisely. And the sooner we get on with making plans for that property, the sooner it will probably happen. So I think this should move forward to the planning level and the statements that we need should be incorporated into our OCP right away. And we should start the discussion perhaps with our advisory planning commission and Chamber of Commerce and others on what our needs are. I would just like to point out that the last time this hall was renovated and they built that stage, they took 20 feet away from our floor space and the hall ended up being smaller than it had been before because so much was dedicated to a stage and so much was taken away from meeting space down below. So we really need to move ahead with this and get the objective for a new community center in our OCP and start to work on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Excuse me. I think the direction from council at the time was to look at building a new office. I fully agree with this recommendation from the Age Friendly, but I will bring to your attention and the public that when this came up a few years ago, that the public turned down having a health center because we had a unit that was already a doctor's office. And it was, I believe, $38,000 a year to lease it. And Fraser Health were going to pay for the doctor and everything else. But through the approval process, the public turned it down 10%, as you know, the approval process, which I think is what 221 people turned it down to pay that lease to have a doctor. Also, there was a petition that went round to turn it down. We had applied also for a grant to build a new hall and space there for the Age Friendly or those sort of groups as well, besides the officers as well. And then that unfortunately petition was circulated and it was turned down. So we have approached this before, and I certainly hope that that when it comes forward for reconsideration, that the health part of it is looked at it very seriously, because with our growing population, we would have had a doctor by now in place, but unfortunately, the public, which is their right, sought not to fund the leasing of the building at that time. So I support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. To support it. Okay, so the motion on the table here then is this, it was just moved that council adopt the recommendation from the Age Friendly Committee report of May 6, 2024. Ready for me to call the question? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed, passes unanimously. And the next one would be reports of the committees. Councillor Jackson, just going to go around the table clockwise.
Thank you, Worship. Getting ready for July the 1st. Our first meetings are behind us. We're lining up all the events for the day. It's going to be another spectacular one coming up. Also, I attended the LMLGA for the last 3 days and a conference in Whistler. Found it extremely enlightening, and it was so nice to be around so many young people that have given their time to run as or be mayors or councillors. I would recommend it to anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, not much to report. I did attend the local Lower Mainland Local Government Association meeting in Whistler for the last 3 days, and I found it very educational. There were 59 resolutions that we dealt with, plus a few extras, and it covered a wide range of issues affecting municipalities throughout the Lower Mainland. I also got an opportunity to talk to some Whistler people, being one of our first and leading resort municipalities, and to look at some of their initiatives, including their code of conduct discussion that's ongoing. And I looked at their function junction, which is the area at the south of the village where they use for all of the support services for a community that we are missing sadly in Harrison Hot Springs. And I think we should look at their model and think about that in planning terms, because they have all of the businesses that don't need to be on Front Street retail are there. And it's a very important part of an integrated community. Thank you.
Councillor Bidell and then Councillor Facio.
Thank you. I also attended Lower Mainland Local Government Association Conference up in Whistler. And as Councillor Allen alluded to, there were 59 resolutions that were presented and debated. I'm happy to say that the resolution that was submitted by the village was endorsed. And the next step now will be for that resolution to be forwarded to UBCM in September for consideration of delegates there. Should it be successfully endorsed at UBCM, the next step is for UBCM to advocate with the province. I'm going to go over a few highlights from the conference. One of the first sessions was public safety challenges in public spaces. And this session involved 5 presenters who alluded on public consumption of drugs and public safety. And one of the takeaways I got from that is there are 2 communities, representatives on the panel, who have now instigated a program called Second Responders.
Sorry, Councillor Vidal, that's really humming here. I don't know where that's feedback.
Can everyone hear me? All right. So this program I found fascinating, and what it is if emergency services attend to a call and that patient is clearly suffering from an overdose from an opioid or other toxic drug. The next day, there is a follow-up with someone from that emergency service and a mental health worker who shows up just to check on them and to provide information and referral to community services as they deem fit. There's also a question and answer session with Sonia Furstenau, who is the leader of the BC Green Party. And then a very good session on the future of transportation. And although it did focus mostly on the Lower Mainland, I found some interesting statistics that 1/3 of the population relies on transit. And also there is a concern and a need for a more sustainable way to fund transit. And that is because of the move towards electric vehicles, that the revenue from the gas tax is declining. We also had a presentation from Lisa Helps, who is the former mayor of Victoria, but who now is the executive lead on the BC Builds project. And she explained how the province is working with local governments to shorten certain processes in order to build more affordable housing or housing in the future. The annual general meeting was reported 59 resolutions. And Friday morning was a question and answer session with Kevin Falcon, leader of the opposition, BC United. And then a very good discussion on Indigenous rights into UNDRIP implementation and how local governments can work together with First Nations and First Peoples in order to build relationships. And also, if First Nations are included in the planning process of projects, the provincial government and federal government are more likely to participate by way of funding. We had an address by Councillor Trish Mandale, who is our current UBC president. And then a Q&A session with our Minister of Municipal Affairs, the Honorable Ann Kang. And the closing keynote was Keith Baldry and Vaughn Palmer, two well-known journalists who provided us with an update on what was happening, BC legislature, and some insights into the upcoming provincial election. And just a public service announcement, and that is this week is designated Emergency Preparedness Week. And the theme this year is Be Prepared, Know Your Risks. So if you want to take the time, the Village Facebook page will have tips all week for yourself and for your family and your home should an emergency arise. And that's my report. Thank you.
Councillor Facile.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I also attended the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, and there were 235 delegates this year. It was a record year for registration. A very well-run conference. The executive had 9 meetings during the year, and the membership remains strong with representation from 32 member municipalities and regional districts. This year, the conference program was tackling the big issues, and Thursday was a big, long day with tackling many of those issues. Very good presenters. I want to congratulate Councillor Vidal, who was by acclamation elected as the first vice president for the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, and for also she was the moderator for the question and answer session with the leader opposition, Kevin Falcon, and she kept it on time, and which is one of the important things with these conferences, is try and keep everything on time. Good address from the Municipal Affairs, Anna Kang. That's our municipal person who deals with municipal affairs for us. And I'm also very happy and actually very proud the way that Councillor Vidal presented the resolution regarding the routine mammogram screening program. And I commend her on how she put herself forward and related to the problems that she had trying to get a mammogram. Again, a very good conference. It's not sure if it's going to be in Harrison or Whistler again next year, but it's something that we as representatives, whoever can go, it's important to go to these sessions, to listen, to pick up, to learn. And it's always nice to meet people you haven't seen for most of the year. And also, I had some time in, before I went to the conference in Victoria, and I also went to the legislature and had a meeting there. So it was a very good conference. Congratulations to the association. And again, congratulations to our first vice president, Councillor Vidal. Thank you, Mayor Wood.
Thank you. Next item is reports from the mayor. So I was honored to attend the Surrey Board of Trade, which is the Women's Business Awards. And the guest speaker there was Sophia Trudeau. It was a good experience to listen to her, Sophia speak. It was all on the leadership and the importance of mental health, not just in women, but also in men. I attended the soft opening of the Tourism Harrison buildings. That was just 2 days ago. It's I only had an opportunity to see the lower floor, the museum. It's actually quite interesting to see. It's not something that you would expect. It's well done, actually. It's very well done. Kudos to them for the museum. We've had environmental and age-friendly committee meetings. So we've had 2 meetings of each. So this week here, actually Wednesday here, we're going on to our 3rd meeting. So those committee meetings, I know there was invitations out for members of the public for committees. Could the community services manager just confirm, is that closed now?
Thank you, Mayor Wood. We didn't set a specific closing date, but the committees that are existing already will be reviewing the applications that have been submitted for those committees. And then staff will be bringing back reports to council for those that did not have enough members in advance to get started.
Do we have a date when those are supposed to come to the committees? Will it come to Wednesday's committee?
I'll have to confirm if there are any more applications for that committee. The last time I checked, I don't believe that there were, but I'll confirm that before Wednesday for you.
Thank you. And since I've got you here on the mic, I just want to talk about the wellness event that the village held here. It was well attended. I think everybody was, again, the numbers were good. It was nice to see the dialogue. There was, I believe 3 or 4 private vendors. There was the District of Kent, and then there was a lot of joint communities forums that we have. And again, I thank all of them, and especially to the District of Kent for having some representatives here with their parks and recreation. So the age-friendly committee is going to be talking about it further and seeing what we do with it or what we can expand it to on the future year. Did our community services manager, did she have anything else to want to add to that one?
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Nothing, I don't think out of the ordinary besides what you just touched on. It was a great turnout. We received a lot of really good feedback. It was one of an event that hadn't been held here for quite some time, so it was a good learning experience as well. Still lots of people talking about it. It was brought up at the Agassiz Harrison Healthy Communities Committee in regards to how impressed some of the presenters didn't expect there to be so many people when they were coming out to Harrison. So all in all, I think it was a great day. So thank you to all the community who took the time to come out as well.
Thank you. The other was a meeting with the Minister of Emergency Management, Minister Ma. It was a Zoom meeting with all the mayors, and that's all regarding emergency management meetings and the importance of the mayor being part of the emergency management meetings. Actually, it's a must that the mayor is part of the emergency management meetings so that when we have these discussions, the mayors are all in tune with it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to provide much comment on that particular one. And the stream keepers, they released, Councillor Allen was there. I believe it was 5,000 chum fry, correct, Councillor? So the elementary school were there, the kids, they all had little ice cream buckets. They were all filled up with little fishies, and they spent over an hour there dishing them out of the big tub and putting them in the Miami River, just right next door to us here and at the end of Maple. And it was there was an interesting one. They had what's it called? Albino. And I guess it's I'm not quite sure what that looks like, but all the kids were hoping that they would get the albino. So they made it really entertaining for the kids, and the kids had lots of questions that they were asked, and kids are smarter than I think most of the adults that were there. But it was nice to see. Thank you to the stream keepers for that. Next order of business is, I'm going to move on here myself. Item 12, which is reports from staff. Item A, please, to the Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. The Village of Harrison Hot Springs requested support from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs in the letter dated February 27th, 2023. A contract was struck between Pool Consulting and the ministry, which allowed work to commence on March 15th, 2023. The contract was intended to conclude June 15th, 2023. However, the parties agreed to 2 additional extensions, with the final extension concluding on March 31st, 2023. The final deliverable of the contract with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs was a preparation of a report from Municipal Advisor Ron Poole, which had 7 recommendations to the Village of Harrison Hot Springs. A council CAO covenant is recommendation number 6. Mr. Poole's presented this final report to council on November 8th, 2023, a regular council meeting. In Mr. Poole's final report, he stated that the Village of Harrison Hot Springs is fortunate to have such a high degree of professionalism from a relatively new staff. My time in Harrison Hot Springs, working with intern CAO Kelly Ridley, current CAO Tyson Cook, and all senior staff has been nothing less than extremely professional, respectful, and thoroughly enjoyable. I conducted staff orientation sessions as well as educated staff on how council's strategic vision into the day-to-day operations. This is a committed team that strives to provide high level of service to the community and elected body. The organization has gone through high staff turnover since the election, and attracting good talent is challenging at best. The market is saturated with the jobs. Currently, 620 local government vacancies in British Columbia are listed on Civic Info BC. In order to ensure that politics, which is known as governments, does not fuse with administration, it is important that mayor and council respect one employee system. As discussed during the orientation session, the CAO position is established to oversee the management and manage all staff. It is this one position that reports to council as elected, reports to council. Council was elected to govern, not administer the municipality. Staff are the experts hired, not elected, to handle the operational side. In order to recognize the importance of this relationship, many municipalities and regional districts signed council CAO covenants that acknowledge this significant relationship. And at the November 8th, 2023 regular council meeting, I'll just go straight to the motion, point number 6, that council establish a council CAO covenant in order to ensure clarity of roles and to establish a respectful relationship. Staff conducted a review of their other municipalities with public council CAO covenants and have created a draft document which is attached to this report. There are no financial considerations with this report, and the strategic plan priorities is organizational development to provide for the need of a growing community.
So the recommendation is that council adopt the council chief administrative office covenant. Do I have a mover?
So move, Mayor Wood.
Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Bidell. Into discussion. I'm gonna start this one here off here. So this covenant between council and the chief administrative officer is something that actually I wanted my first day in office. It's a it is a very useful tool. I have a lot of concerns with what's in front of us here. There's a lot that's in this bylaw here that really needs to be elaborated on. There's concerns in here that clearly go against the community charter, and those ones are the ones that concern me. It is the mayor who's the chief executive officer, and I mean, that's quite clear, and it's under section 116 of the charter here, and I can read it out here. The responsibility of the mayor. The mayor is the head and chief executive officer of the facility. So when we talk about a one employee model, that contradicts the community charter. It is only council that has the authority to fire the corporate officer or the chief financial officer, not the chief administrative officer. How you can say the chief administrative officer is responsible for management when the chief administrative officer has no authority to actually dismiss either one of the two officers. It is only a decision that council can make. And I just want to reread the section there. Termination of officers under section 152(1) of the community charter is that subject to a contract of employment and subject to providing the officer with an opportunity to be heard, the appointment of a municipal officer may be terminated by the council as follows. So there's a number of ways, but again, these are council decisions. So to say that the chief financial officer and the corporate officer are not part of council's responsibilities, it contradicts the community charter, in my opinion, very clearly. And I think it's one of the biggest problems that we have. I think it's very important that council understands what their authority is and what the chief administrative officer's authority is. We've been waiting here now for a couple of months to have a third party assistant to come in and to try to put this together. So to have this bylaw, or not bylaw, sorry, this covenant in place before the conversations even start is premature. I understand it's here because there was a resolution of council to actually bring it here. And I've heard a lot of concerns about this covenant, but the covenant has to be something that works between both people. It has to be. Otherwise, it's of absolute no value. There's no sense having a piece of paper on here that just sits on the desk and nothing gets done. There's no accountability for it. Do we need accountability? No. I think every single one of us understands what the word respect means. I think people all understand what collaborative work means. I think everyone can understand clearly what the chief executive officer means and what the chief administrative officer means and what council means. I think it's clear. So I can't support what's written in here, but I absolutely endorse the thought of a covenant for this. Councillor Allen, I believe you were next.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those of us who come from a church background know a lot about covenants because they're talked about incessantly in the Bible. And a covenant is effectively an agreement between parties. It can be between two people or hundreds of people, but they all have to agree to the covenant. And if one party doesn't agree, it's not a covenant. It's a dictatorial imposition of some set of rules. I'm quite happy with 5 of the statements in the covenants, those being number 1, 3, 7, and 9. And I totally reject the other 5 statements in the covenant. And as a result, I will not be signing this as a signatory because I do not agree with it. I also do not agree with this, what I consider a heretical notion that the CAO is the only employee of the municipality. That is not what the statute says. I know it's popular among the group of people that represents CAOs, and I think that's just self-serving. And there's somebody called Clough from Ontario who's been preaching this Ontario weak mayor model for years, and it pains me that he's had any success at all in doing that. Our municipalities in British Columbia are structured along corporate lines, as was stated by Premier Gordon Campbell when he set up the community charter. And he said, your mayor will be your chief executive officer, and he will be the man at whose desk the buck will stop, and he will be in charge of all staff. In my experience and opinion, having been part of the writing of that statute when I was mayor back then, and I agreed with that, the chief administrative officer's role is to support the mayor in his efforts as CEO. If you take the mayor out of the equation, you've taken the keystone out of the bridge, everything collapses, you've taken the captain off the bridge of the boat, and it's just a governance disaster. So I'm very much opposed to this covenant because of the fact that it preaches this false gospel of the CAO being effectively the CEO and the mayor being merely a figurehead who has to show up every 2 weeks and chair a meeting. That is not the way it's supposed to be. and I do not approve of any effort to reduce the mayor's position, the mayor's powers, or the mayor's authority. The statute simply says that the mayor is the leader of the council and the chief executive officer, and we should just remember that. So I totally reject the covenant, will not be signing it, and if one person doesn't sign it, it's not a covenant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Facio.
Well, thank you, Mayor Wood. Regarding the employment of a CAO, as long as I've been on council, and this is not from me, this is from people who have more knowledge about municipal law than I have, it's always been recognized that the council only employ one person, that's the CAO. And that's always been recognized, that they employ just one person. The CAO has the other duties of the financial officer, corporate officer, and other managers. The council roles and responsibilities. The members of a municipal council are the mayor and the councillors. Despite the change in its membership, the council of the municipality is continuing body and may complete any proceedings started but not completed before the change. Powers, duties, and functions in the municipality be exercised and performed by its council, except as otherwise decided. Council has all the necessary power to do anything incidental or conducive to the exercise or performance of any power, duty, or function conferred on a council or municipality by this or any other enactment. And in section 147, the chief administrative officer, a bylaw under section 146 may establish the position of a chief administrative officer of the municipality whose powers, duties, functions include the following: overall management of the operations of the municipality, ensuring that the policies, programs, and other directions of council are implemented, advising and informing the council on the operation and the affairs of the municipality. And one other one I think that's very important is 153. Prohibition against interfering with municipal officers and employees. A person must not interfere with, hinder, or obstruct a municipal officer or employee in the exercise or performance of the officers or employees' powers, duties, or functions. Thank you, Mayor Wood.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Worship. The reality is in the real world, in the corporate world, the CEO, they don't deal with staff. They have much more important things to do. All the staff are dealt with on the vice presidents or presidents, and that's our system. We have the CIO. Corporate CEOs have a different responsibility, and it's not the management or running of the organization. It's developing the policies and the procedures and the wherewithal to keep it going. So the CEO in a municipality does not have that authority to do it. So we're just talking of semantics here. If you're not happy with this is rewritten, then table it, send it back to staff and get more additional information that you require. That way you may be able to satisfy all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vidal, did you already speak on this? Sorry. Have you spoken yet? Sorry. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I'm going to, I disagree with Councillor Allen's perception of duties as a CEO. We have to keep in mind that local government is not a private company. And under Section 116 of the Community Charter, it lists the responsibilities of the mayor. The mayor is the head and chief executive officer of the municipality. In addition to the mayor's responsibilities as a member of council, the mayor has the following responsibilities: to provide leadership to the council, including by recommending bylaws, resolutions, and other measures that, in the mayor's opinion, may assist in the peace, order, and good governance of the municipality. To communicate information to the council. To preside at council meetings when in attendance. To provide on behalf of the council general direction to municipal officers respecting implementation of municipal policies, programs, and other directions of the council. To establish standing committees in accordance with Section 4. To suspend municipal officers and employees in accordance with Section 5. To reflect the will of council and to carry out other duties on behalf of council, and to carry out other duties assigned under this or any other act. The Council to CAO Covenant is one of our municipal advisors' recommendation. I believe the covenant is clear and concise on expectations of the interaction between council and our CAO. It provides clarity, transparency, and clearly defining the roles and responsibilities of both council and the CAO. I fully support the recommendation. Thank you.
So just for clarification then to Councillor Vidal's comments. So this covenant was not done by Ron Poole, who was the provincial advisor. The provincial advisor only recommended that we enter into a covenant. I totally support that we enter into a covenant. That is very important that we enter into one. I agree with that. It's what's in it. So that's what goes around the table here. So we all have different ideas. To me, I totally agree with Councillor Allen. It is very clear to me that it is the mayor who is the chief executive officer. It is only the mayor that has the authority of council to suspend, not councillors. It is the mayor. It is only council that has the authority to discipline, fire the corporate officer and the chief financial officer. There's only two positions, two officer positions that are required by law under the community charter. That's the chief financial officer again and the corporate officer. The chief administrative officer has no authority to fire, dismiss either one of those officers. To say that those two officers would report to a person that has no authority to hire or fire them when it is council's decision to do the dismissal, it is clearly the chief executive officer status of which works through the mayor and provides council's direction, again, to the chief financial officer and the corporate officer. And I think that you read the item out there yourself, Councillor Vidal, 116D, to provide on behalf of the council the general direction to municipal officers respecting implementation of municipal policies, programs, and other directions of council. It is the mayor that has this responsibility above and beyond what a councillor does. I think it's very important for council to understand what their responsibilities are. Now that you read what the mayor's are, I think it's important that council reads what their responsibilities are.
Mr. Mayor,
No.
I think we all know what our responsibilities.
Order,
With this is
order,
just
order,
going on and
order.
on and on.
order, councillor.
No.
Order,
it's-
Counselor,
It's
please.
time we get on with this, either table it
Order
or
it.
do something.
Order it, Counselor.
We're spending all night long on this, and it's time to bring it to an end. Thank you.
Responsibility of council members, 115 of the community charter. Every council member has the following responsibilities: to consider the well-being of the interest of the municipality and its community, to contribute to the development and evaluation of policies and programs of the municipality respecting its services and other activities. C, to participate in council meetings, committee meetings, and meetings of other bodies to which members are appointed. D, to carry out other duties assigned by council. E, to carry out other duties assigned under this or any other act. There's nothing in that that says that a council member has any of those authorities. It is the mayor alone as the chief executive officer. I'm going to move an amendment that this be referred back to staff to work with the mayor. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Allen. Further discussion on that? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes with Councillor Vidal and Facio opposed.
Pardon me, Mayor Wood, just can you clarify, is that being referred back to staff, please?
Yes. The motion was to refer this back to staff to work with the mayor.
Thank you.
The next item, item B here, to our Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I think I'll just go to the recommendation if it's okay with council, because we've had this on the agenda for, I think, for the almost, 4 weeks. So the recommendation is that the Village of Harrison Hot Springs Council give its consent by way of formal resolution to Fraser Valley Regional District Sub-Regional Transit Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1729/2024. And that Village Council directs staff to send a letter to the FVRD confirming the same.
Moved, do I have a
Moved
motion?
by Wood.
Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Allen. Any discussion on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just a
Councillor-
question for information, if I can ask the Chief Financial Officer. Does this mean if are my calculations correct in that our contribution to having the bus which comes to Harrison is going up from 80,000 a year to 93,700? Have I got that right?
Thank you, Mayor Wood, through to Councillor Allen. That is correct. The requisition for 2024 was about 93,000.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So I'm not going to read out the motion. Do I need to read this out? Ready to call the question and all in favor? Opposed? Nobody's opposed. Passes unanimously. Item C then. That's to our Community Services Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. This report is to provide information on a funding opportunity to enhance the village's asset management processes. The village currently has a council policy number 1.29 asset management policy that was adopted in 2019, as well as the previously created asset management plan, both of which need to be updated. The Union of British Columbia Municipalities has been supporting the asset management planning program grant since 2014. The intent of this program is to assist local governments in delivering sustainable services by extending and deepening asset management practices within their organizations. The village's Director of Operations, Jace Hodgson, is a member of the Community of Practice for Fraser Valley Asset Management, a collaborative group sponsored by Asset Management BC. Asset management activities fall broadly under the categories of assess, plan, and implement. Success of this grant program will allow the village to continue to improve upon, implement, and track asset management, as well as provide important training and education to staff. UBCM's asset management planning program can provide up to 50% of total project costs to a maximum of $25,000. The remainder 50% is required to be funded through community contributions, which can include the Community Works Fund in-kind contribution, which would also be staff time, as well as other grant funding. The village has previously budgeted funds for 2024 for staff to participate in the Asset Management BC Training Conference, and these funds would form a portion of the matching amount. Staff will also look to apply to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program to bridge the funding gap from any expenses above what would normally be anticipated in the fiscal budget. The policy consideration from the 2023 strategic plan is for organizational development to provide for the needs of a growing community. And the proposed recommendation is that staff be authorized to apply for the UBCM Asset Management Planning Program grant for up to $25,000 to cover up to 50% of total project costs.
Do I have a mover? Moved by Counselor Bidell, seconded by Counselor Jackson. Discussion? I just want to say, I think it's a great, anything to do with asset management, you have my support. I love it. It's just, it's information that'll save us down the line. So that's a nice, hopefully we get that grant. Thank you. I'm going to, not going to read, actually, I will read it out again. It's a short one. So the motion here is that staff be authorized to apply for the UBCM Asset Management Planning Program grant for up to $25,000 to cover up to 50% of the total project costs. So I call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Nobody's opposed, passes unanimously. And the next item D, which is, looks like we have a Director of Operations. Go
Mayor
ahead.
Wood, if I may.
Go ahead.
I hoped to be able to announce this in a previous council meeting. I'm pleased to announce that Jace Hodgson's position has been changed to Director of Operations from Operations Manager. Congratulations, Jace.
Now you can go ahead. Now you can read your report.
Thank you, Mayor Ward. The Boat Launch Building Addition is a carryover project from the 2019 to 2021 Resort Municipality Initiative Program. Under the village's resort development strategy, the goal of this project is to diversify the seasonal nature of the tourism industry by developing shoulder season events and invest in tourism assets that prolong the tourism season. Another goal of this project is to enhance visitor experience and satisfaction by improving the quality and quantity of tourism amenities and tourism-related infrastructure. As per the RMI funding agreement in recent correspondence, this project must be complete by March 31st, 2025. The scope of the addition and renovation will include concession space, shelving and storage, and exterior facade upgrades. These upgrades aim to address functionality and create a visually appealing environment with modern materials and finishes that complement other village facilities and incorporate architectural elements to create a more positive and memorable experience for visitors and residents. The village engaged in a competitive tender process and issued a request for proposals on February 21st. The village received 6 proposals by the closing date of March 20th and completed an evaluation based on financial, corporate, and technical criteria. As outlined in the village's procurement and purchasing and procurement policy number 1.08, given that this project was included in the financial plan, staff have awarded the contract to Kurtz Construction, a local contracting company. Construction is set to commence at the beginning of May with project completion targeted at November 2024. The RFP submitted by Kurtz Construction quotes the project at a total cost of $276,565. Funding for this project will come from the Resort Municipality Initiative. And the recommendation is that the Director of Operations report dated April 15th, 2024 regarding the Boat Launch Building Addition contract award be received for information.
Mayor Wood.
Moved by Counselor Facio, seconded by Counselor Bidell. Discussion just on receipt. Yep, Counselor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, received for information. Well, being relatively new on council as of last October, I don't have much information. So please correct me if I'm wrong. As I understand it, what you're proposing, sorry, what you're planning to do is to put a new building alongside the existing boat launch building on the north side, about the same size. Is that correct? a whole new building.
Right.
And the purpose of the building is to support the skating rink, the Starlight, whatever it was called, skating rink. My concern is that when we've spent this next $276,000, we will have spent about $500,000 on a plastic skating rink that does not seem to have a future in Harrison Hot Springs. And I would just ask the question, why are we doing this? One of my concerns is that I think that one of the problems with the plastic skating rink, apart from the fact that it's plastic, is that it's in the wrong location. It needs to be downtown Harrison, on Maple Street next door, in the plaza, out on the beach. It needs to be somewhere in the center of the village. And if there's any chance of it to succeed, in my opinion, it needs to migrate to the core of the village. Putting in another $250,000 kind of condemns it to being in that location, which we know doesn't work. So while I'm duty bound to receive the report, I have to record the fact that I disapprove of this expenditure. Thank you.
Councillor Vidal. Councillor Vidal, just before, I think Chase, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Through you, Councillor Allen. So part of the project, even if the rink isn't reinstated in the same area, the space still can be used as a concession and storage opportunities. Additionally, a visually appealing boat launch building with attractive design can also enhance the overall aesthetic of the area.
Thank you. Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Through you to either our corporate office or through our CAO or to our financial officer. I just want to confirm that previous council approved this project last term. Is that correct?
The project was,
Go.
sorry, through you, Mayor Wood. So this has been ongoing, but yes, it was approved by council previously, and it also was approved in the previous RDS as well.
Thank you. And just for those persons in sitting in our gallery or here on Zoom tonight, I do want to clarify that the expenditure for the upgrade of this building is coming from Resort Municipality Initiative funds. It is not coming out of general revenue or coming from taxpayers. Thank you.
So I'm just going to respond to a couple of those comments. So the boat launch, this addition here was approved by the previous council, but it was actually put on hold by this council. And it is still, the project is still on hold. So I also am disappointed that we see that this project proceed. It makes no sense to put the concession there when in fact, I'm not going to repeat what Councillor Allen just said, but it makes no sense to me. And the other part that came up to do with the rink, which is part of the MI funds, is that now we are going to be responsible for a lifetime to operate and maintain this concession stand. I don't know why the village wants to get into the operation of a concession stand at the boat launch. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I just wanted to advise the public and council that the project was put on hold, but then it was also re-endorsed by council at a previous meeting.
And I will strongly disagree with that. Any further discussion? This is just for receipt, Councillor Allen, you've already spoken, sir. And ready to call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Passes with Councillor Allen and the mayor opposed. Next item is item E.
Would you like me to read that, Mayor Wood?
I would, please.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to interrupt you a second. Let's I just want to speed things up a little bit here. I think council have all had the opportunity to read all of the information here. So I'm just would just ask if we can just read out the address and the recommendation.
Absolutely. You want the address first or
Yeah.
just the recommendation?
It's got rezoning application 435 Pine, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the rezoning application is 435 Pine. The recommendation in front of council is that council request the applicant for the rezoning of the 435 Pine Avenue to set up a public notification meeting as per section 11 of the Villages Development Procedures Bylaw number 1090/2016.
Do I have a mover? Do I have a mover for this? Moved by Counselor Vidal, seconded by Counselor Jackson. Discussion? Counselor Allen, then Counselor Facio.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm not in favor of this at this time. I think that there was a time when we had an opportunity to create a higher density neighborhood on Pine Avenue. But that opportunity has left and gone and isn't coming back. And I say that because an essential part of creating a viable neighborhood, particularly a high density neighborhood, is ensuring that we have adequate streets, highways, sidewalks, parks, and other facilities to support it. I know that there was a community planning process carried out that resulted in the OCP opening up the possibility of higher densities in that area. But that community planning process was grossly deficient in that it failed to recognize that Pine Avenue is a narrow, twisty, tree-lined little street with no sidewalks, not enough room for cars on each side, and it's a long way short of being a big enough street to handle the kind of traffic that will be generated if these properties continue to be developed. My calculation is that if all of the underutilized properties on Pine Avenue go in this direction, it'll create 200 new dwelling units. We already have probably the most dangerous road junction in Harrison, where Pine Avenue joins Hot Springs Road. And what should have happened when the development on the south side of that junction was being considered is that the road should have been widened, sidewalks should have been put in, and a standard established that would be applied for all of Pine Avenue between Hot Springs Road and McCombs. This is what is classified in the schedule of streets as a collector street. That is a residential area street which feeds into a number of smaller streets and cul-de-sacs. And a collector street, I believe in our own subdivision bylaw, is required to be dramatically wider than Pine Avenue is today. And council had the opportunity to require that road widening width in the development of the Breezes and the other project on the south side and didn't do so. So to my mind, to contemplate further densification of Pine Avenue until it is created as a safe road with sidewalks on both sides, and we're talking about higher density, low-cost housing, which will probably attract families. Child safety is important, and that comes from good sidewalks and curbs on each side to allow them to navigate the traffic to and from school. And we don't have it, and there's no plan to have it. So without that basic fundamental infrastructure being either in place or planned for and stuck to as a plan, I do not approve any further densification on Pine Avenue. I mentioned kids talking about traffic. We also need to have parkland, and there is no parkland on Pine Avenue, and there's none contemplated. So what are the kids going to do? They're going to play in the traffic on the road, and that is wrong. If we're going to be serious about the densification of Pine Avenue, and I don't argue against the better utilization of land in that area, we must provide for the users by putting in the adequate road and sidewalks and by creating at least some kind of neighborhood pocket park. And none of that is in the plans, and until it is, I do not support densification further densification of Pine Avenue. Thank you.
Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Pine, Alder, Echo, Emerald and Cedar, they're all narrow roads in Harrison. That's the old parts of Harrison. So that's no news to anybody. Pine Avenue was improved with speed bumps and also the intersection that was cleared on the south corner when the townhouses were built. That opened up that intersection tremendously for a visual for pulling out. I mean, like I've said before, responsibility of pulling out from an intersection is the responsibility of the person who's either driving or cycling or even wanting to cross the road. In regards to streets, well, there are many streets, even the original Watts subdivision with the wide roads where we have parks pretty close. They still want to play in the streets, or they put up their basketball nets to play in the streets. So I don't think that's going to change unless council wants to pass a bylaw, which I wouldn't recommend. Regarding the one question I would like to ask through you, Mr. Mayor, is this recommendation just purely for the public notification? It is not for a rezoning.
Did the Chief Administrative Officer? want
Thank
to-
you, Mayor Wood. Through you to Councillor Fascio. That's what I was actually raising my hand to indicate that this is just a motion of council to ask the developer to do a public notification meeting and nothing further at this time.
Thank you, because I do not agree with the R5 recommendation. It's R2 on Pine, which is duplexes. So, but if that's been confirmed, it's only a public notification meeting, that's fine. Thank you, Mayor Wood.
Thank you, Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I note that this is the second time this proposal has come to council. Previously, the proposal was for 20 townhomes. And my understanding now, looking at this, is that it has been reduced to 10 townhouses. And I'm not ready yet to commit at all in support of the development. And I think it is important that we do hear from the public. So I will be reserving any decision on whether the development proposal can go to the next step until that public information meeting is held and the results of those are reported back to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Worship. What I would like to see to determine whether or not the village has a right of way either on the north or the south side of the street. And if they do have the right of way, then we could look at the possibility of having a sidewalk on either side. I do believe for the safety of everybody in that area that in order to identify, which we're going to have to do anyway, because we have the safety. I do agree with what Councillor Allen said. We should have a sidewalk and a little bit more planning before we go ahead with all these developments. Thank you.
Was that an amendment, Councillor? Were you?
Yes, it is.
So your amendment is to refer this back to staff?
Staff.
Pardon me, Mayor Wood. I just wanted to clarify to council that what you're talking about right now is more at the subdivision approval process. That would be the approving officer has the ability to request widening as long as it meets our bylaw. And that's been a consideration. It's not being shown here, but that is under consideration as well. So again, this is just to get public feedback so it can be brought back to council to receive information from the public regarding this application alone.
Thank you for that. My idea is though that there's going to be a lot of applications. So can we establish whether there is a right of way that we have, because most, like, if I take my house, my lawn goes right up to actually to the road almost. But I do know that it's encroaching probably on village land. I think most of us are that way. If we could establish that, it would just make this process much easier. Thank you.
Yes,
Just,
may I answer?
just, no. So there's an amendment on here to refer this back to staff for the road allowance, road right of way. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Allen. Discussion on that, referring to staff. Councillor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Jackson mirrors my concerns about the road width. I believe that what we need to do here is to have our staff instructed to go out there with their expensive pin finder, which is a yellow device that finds survey pins, and identify the corner pins and the survey pins on both sides of the street, mark them with stakes and ribbons, and let us see. My understanding from the previous development is that the current blacktop goes pretty well to the property line, and there's no extra boulevard on Pine Avenue for a sidewalk or for any widening. This has to be obtained at the time of subdivision. And my concern is that if we approve the development or the zoning, then we have lost control, because the approving officer doesn't necessarily have to do what council wants done, and can go ahead and approve the subdivision without requiring that the developer give up the necessary land for sidewalks. And that's what happened on the first development. The approving officer didn't require the extra road widening width for sidewalks, and we lost the opportunity. And we don't want to do that again. So when I sit here as a councillor, I want an assurance that we will get everything that the village is entitled to, including the necessary road widening on every property along Pine Avenue that's up for development, because that is how you get wider roads on a historic old road. It comes in bits and pieces, but eventually you get them joined up and you have a continuous road and sidewalk. So that's why I'm opposed to going ahead until we've done that work and established that that will be a wide and a safe road. And the corner at Hot Springs Road that Mr. Facio is talking about is in complete violation of the section of our zoning bylaw that requires the sightline triangle at those corners. 25 feet back from the corner pin, 1 foot high is as high as you're supposed to go. We're already in violation of our own bylaw, and nobody's doing anything about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further
Mayor, what- may I
further
respond?
further discussion, no, that's. Any for just further discussion, and then I'll call Councillor Vidal. This is just on the amendment.
On the amendment, I'm not in favor of the amendment. I believe that those concerns echoed by Councillor Jackson and Councillor Allen are best discussed and dealt with at the next step in the development process. I absolutely agree that we need a public information meeting to have that come back to council, and at that time, make the decision whether we want to go ahead, or at that time, enter into that discussion on council regarding Councillor Jackson's concerns. Thank you.
Further discussion? So the motion right now that's on the table here is the amendment, which is referred to staff for road right away. So I'm ready to call the question. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Motion passes with Councillor Vidal opposed. Go ahead to our Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Moving on to the rezoning application for 442 and 464 Pine Avenue.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. We have to deal with the original motion as amended.
That's what,
My apologies.
that's what I actually thought we were doing. Yes. Okay, so back to the original motion was that council request the applicant for rezoning of 435 Pine to set up a public notification meeting as per section 11 of the village's development procedural bylaw number 1090, 2016 as amended. They're ready to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody's opposed.
My apologies, Mayor Wood. Now moving on to the next one, rezoning application, 442 and 464 Pine Avenue. I'll just move to the recommendation that council request the applicant to set up a public information or notification meeting for the rezoning of 442 and 464 Pine Avenue as per section 110 of the Village Development Procedure Bylaw number 1090, 2016.
Okay, I'm going to, just to save a little bit of time here, I'm going to start right with the same amendment that we just had for the 435 Pine. So I'm going to put the motion out here. So I would move that this be referred to staff for the road right away. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Jackson. Sorry. Any discussion on this one here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like that to be more clear. I'd like to see the survey stakes, the ownership stakes in the front of these properties clearly marked and identified so that I, as a councillor, can walk down Pine Avenue, taking my life in my hands, just to see where those property lines are and to see what the extent of the problem is. When we did the little development at the end, now known as Lackberg Crescent, we did take an extra piece of the road for widening at that point. And I'm not even sure if that is going to be sufficient for what's planned for the community today. It was good enough when it was all single family homes, but I think we may need more. But I actually need to see what the legal width of the road is and what boulevard we have or have not got available to work with. And I don't know if that needs to be a change to the amending resolution or it can come as instructions from you as Chief Executive Officer, but we need to see where the property lines are because we are the stewards of the property and we can't be stewards if we don't know what property we're responsible for. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that would be, again, this is, we're not talking about the actual recommendation. It is exactly the same amendment as the 435 Pine. And I think that staff are quite clear. I think they understand what it is council wants. If Councillor Ellen, if you wish to make an amendment to the amendment, let's see what staff bring back here, but I would hope that staff could make it so that we can, I think.
Mayor Wood, could I have the resolution read again, please? Thank you.
Yes. Just before Councillor Vidal, so on the motion here, did you want to speak to this or Councillor Facio, I think, had his hand up first. Yeah. Sure. Councillor Facio then.
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Mayor, that Councillor Allen has already mentioned an expensive instrument for measuring the roads. I don't see why there's a need to make any other amendment than the one we already passed, the right of way for sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Vidal, I'll just read the motion out here again. So the motion is not the recommendation that is stated here. The motion is to refer it to staff for road right away.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Can I just clarify that we're not talking about a right of way here? A right of way is something that I have as permission to pass over somebody else's private property. We, the village of Harrison Hot Springs, own Pine Avenue. It's land that we own. We don't have a right of way over it. Nobody else is involved. So let's use the proper language. It's a street. We own the street. It's our responsibility. There's no right of way involved. So let's stop using that term, please. Thank you.
If you'd like to make an amendment to the amendment, please do, Councillor.
Mayor Wood, May I add some clarification to that, please? I think I understand what Counselor Allen is saying. The road right of way is the road right of way. I think what he's speaking to is the road allowance. It would be a road widening. What is the village under their power through the approving officer to ask for a road widening? We could show where the existing property line is and then show where the ultimate property line would be. And that would indicate where ultimately the right of way is going to end. Now, if council has the opportunity to look in their package, you will see in the drawing that was provided by the applicant that it's very clear where it shows the existing road and in relation to the existing property lines. So that will be, it's obviously much easier to see on a computer because I'm staring at it compared to looking at it on this small piece of paper. But if council wants to look at that, or even the public wants to look at that, it'll provide more clarification exactly where the existing road alignment is. And then I certainly, through council's direction, can speak to both applicants to define where the existing right-of-way edge is, where the road the road right-of-way is, and then where the road widening would be.
I think what council is looking for is not just these two applications. I think they're looking for Pine Street. So what's Pine Street going to look like?
Okay, so ultimately, the responsibility for these developers is only in front of their properties. What it's going to look like down the street, again, that will come or be based on an application basis.
I think that's the resolution, though, that council wants staff to provide that before. So when these projects keep coming back, council knows what it's going to look like instead of relying on the developers or piecemeal. So what is it that we need to do to look after? I don't think any of us are interested in a sidewalk for just a section of Pine. We're talking about what's required to make that road safe. Turn it from a lane back into a proper road if we're going to put this densification in. So the motion again on the table here was to refer the staff for the road right away. I know Councillor Allen, you may not like the word right away. I think staff are clear of what council are looking for. If you again wish to make an amendment to the amendment, please do so. We're good? Okay. So Councillor Vidal, you're happy with the motion now? So ready to call the question, all in favor? Opposed? So motion passes with Councillor Vidal opposed. Yes. Well, no, there was no amendment. We never moved the first recommendation. The recommendation was not moved. So there's no amendment.
Would you like me to read the initial motion recommendation?
No, I think it's okay, because that one, I think it's clear, like that was, the recommendation was not moved or seconded.
That's correct. But we have an existing, so you've provided an additional motion,
Correct.
but we did speak to the initial. Is it my understanding that council does not want the developer to move forward with the public information?
It's no decision. It's just referred right now to go back to staff. So it would be,
Okay, to be clear, the other developer is going to public information and then it's being referred back to staff as well.
it is not carrying through.
You
The fourth-
voted on there
fourth-
was an amendment,
The 435 Pine Street
correct, and then you voted on the original amendment or the original motion?
as amended,
Okay, Okay.
which again is to be referred back to staff for the road right
okay,
away.
my misunderstanding.
Yep, there's no approval to move on either one of those.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. So the next one is item G, which is to our Chief Administrative Officer on this one here. Item G.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I'll just move to the recommendation that the following close meeting resolutions be received for information at the April 15th, now May 6th, 2024 regular council meeting from the March 8th, 2024 special closed council meeting. Initially moved by Mayor Wood, seconded by Councillor Fascio. The motion reads that staff be directed to put out a request for proposals for an independent contractor to assist the village in improving its occupational health and safety program in resolving any outstanding complaints of harassment, bullying, and breaches of village's code of conduct policy. That was carried, opposed by Councillor Allen and Vidal. The second motion was moved by Mayor Wood, seconded by Councillor Jackson, that staff be directed to put out a request for proposals for an independent contractor to guide discussions between blank and blank with the goal of creating a improved work relationship. And those were redacted pursuant to section 22-2 sub H of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. That was carried and opposed by Councillor Fascio and Vidal.
Thank you. Do I have a mover for receipt? Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Fascio. Any discussion for receipt? Councillor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I guess we're just receiving this, but my concern is that it's all a bit too close to all the people involved. And the challenge here, I think, is to find the independent contractor who will not be in any way affected by any selection process or people who are currently involved in these issues. And I think that is the bigger challenge. I'm not really comfortable with this proceeding the way that it is at the moment because I don't find it to be objective enough. Thank you.
This is just for receipt. Yep. Thank you, Councillor. Ready to call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed? Passes unanimously. I think the next one is our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I'm here tonight I'm sorry for the feedback issues tonight. We're working on it, by the way, to fix those. So I'm here this evening for the approval of the 2023 audited financial statements. Just a quick summary on the year. On the revenue side, summer visitation eased a bit from prior years, but it was still quite strong. Total pay parking revenue was $377,000. And that directly assists with beach and park maintenance and other beautification around the village. We continue to earn strong earnings on investments. Obviously, interest rates are quite high, so that's helped a lot. And then there was continued flow of grant opportunities from both provincial and federal governments, including a $1.25 million provincial grant for infrastructure improvements through the Growing Communities Fund. For general expenses, as expected, the village continued to face high inflationary pressures on such items such as utilities, fuel, insurance, chemicals, employee benefits, and raw materials for building projects. Overall, total expenses remained under budget, and the village was in a surplus position for 2023. On the capital project side, generally speaking, we saw less expenditures on capital projects versus budget. That's mostly due to continued challenges around supply chain, as well as timing of grant applications. As many planned projects, actually most planned projects are grant funded. When we apply for grants to the governmental bodies, we need to include the costs of the capital projects in our annual budget. If the grants are not approved or often delayed, we won't see the grant revenues come in, but obviously we won't have any offsetting expenditures either. So there's a net zero impact taxation. You'll notice in the financial statements this year, there's definitely a gap between what was budgeted versus what was spent on capital projects. This is a good example of either the grant application still being in progress, or potentially it being a multi-year project such as the dike, or we're experiencing project delays. So we're looking at a much stronger year in 2024 for project completion. We've got lots of them right now, actually. So in summary, the village remains in very sound financial position. At the end of 2023, there were balances of approximately 8.1 million in reserves, 6.3 million in accumulated surplus, and 5.4 million in development cost charges. So on an annual basis, financial statements for the village are prepared by staff and then independently audited by a third-party firm, which was BDO Canada LLP this year. They were engaged to perform a full audit on the financial statements and present the results to council, which was done earlier today. Section 167 of the Community Charter requires that municipalities submit audited and approved financial statements to the Inspector of Municipalities by May 15th of each year. So the recommendation, there are three. The first one is that the independent auditor's report be received and that the 2023 financial statements be approved, and further that the independent auditor's report be attached to the approved financial statements of the Village of Harrison Hot Springs. Thank you.
So moved, Mayor Wood.
Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Jackson.
A
Discussion.
point of order, Mr. Mayor, are these three separate resolutions or are they joined all together?
They're all joined together.
That causes me a little bit of a problem because I don't wish to approve the first one, but I do wish to approve the other two.
Discussion? Seeing none. So I'll read the motion out here, that the independent auditor's report be received and that the 2023 financial statements of the Village of Harrison Hot Springs be approved, and that further that the independent auditor's report be attached to the approved financial statements of the Village of Harrison Hot Springs. All in favor? Opposed? Passes with Councillor Allen opposed. Next item is our Community Services Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Just wanted to provide a quick verbal report. Staff had a prior motion from council that was that staff be authorized to seek community input for a 75th anniversary celebration. This was also the time that we had the budget increased, and there was an amendment to that the event be held on the Victoria Day weekend. Upon community feedback, as well as lack of resources over the long weekend, staff would like to make a recommendation that the village's 75th anniversary celebration be moved to Friday, May 31st.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a mover on that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion on this? Councillor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Fridays are a terribly busy day for a lot of people. And I'm just wondering what it is we have in mind. Are we intending to attract the public, large numbers, small numbers, big public event, small private event? What's anticipated? Friday seems like a strange day coming into the summer weekend. Most people are trying to take off and go away before the traffic. But so kind of what are we doing on Friday the 31st? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Through you to Councillor Allen. Staff are still finalizing plans, but compared to a weekend day, it would use up less staff overtime resources. It would allow our regularly scheduled staff to facilitate setup. And the thought was for an event starting around like 4 o'clock to 7. And the main draw is for residents for this event, not for tourists. And it was going to be utilizing the overflow parking lot, as well as with some plans to incorporate some exhibit styles inside the council chambers at the village office. That way we also have a bit of a contingency plan for weather as well.
Further discussion? Councillor Facio?
Yes, it's through you, Mr. Mayor. Last time we had this was a great success. It was open. It was basically a gathering for the public following the pandemic, and it was a great event on the vacant lot by the village office, and that's the whole idea, just to bring the residents together and have a nice evening. And I think Friday the kids will all be finished school and it's a long weekend, so there should be plenty of time for people to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So we're ready to call the question. I'll read the motion again, is that the village's 75th anniversary celebration be moved to Friday, May the 31st, 2024. So I call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, bylaws.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Did you want me to read the whole report or
No.
just go directly to the recommendation?
I'm good with the recommendations. We're
Okay.
getting short of
In
time
the
here.
interest of time, yeah. Thank you. The recommendation is that discharge firearms bylaw number 1207/2024 be introduced and given first reading, and the discharge of firearms bylaw number 1207/2024 be given second and third readings.
Move, Mayor Wood.
Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion. So the recommendation, again, I'll read them out again, that a discharge of firearms bylaw 1207/2024 be introduced and given first reading, and the discharge of firearms bylaw 1207/2024 be given second and third readings. So call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes with Councillor Allen opposed.
Did we want to do the same thing with the next, the code of conduct bylaw?
This one's gonna take a while. Yes, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so the subject is the Code of Conduct bylaw number 1205/2024. The recommendation that Code of Conduct bylaw number 1205/2024 be introduced and given first reading, and that Code of Conduct bylaw number 1205/2024 be given second and third reading.
Okay, I wanna rule this one here out of order, and I rule it out of order for a number of reasons. Through the community charter, council procedural bylaw. If council wishes, I'll go through all of the actual readings of it.
Point of order, Mayor Wood, this has already been approved on the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jackson, you did not want to.
Get it over.
So this,
I don't need a lot of explanation.
so your point of order, I heard you, Councillor. So we're moving on. Thank you. Next item, item C, please.
It's a point of order, Mayor Wood. You cannot remove an agenda item once it's been approved,
Thank you, Councillor.
unless you have the approval of all of council.
Councillor Vidal, you're out of order.
I am not out of order, Mayor Wood. I'm
Councillor-
calling a point of order. You
And
need
you're-
to address the point of
And
order.
your point of order is,
Point of order is that you cannot remove an agenda
I-
item
and I-
once it's been approved.
and the mayor makes the decision. The
No, the mayor
decision,
doesn't make the
I am
decision.
speaking, Councillor. The mayor made the decision. I move on. Next item, please. Item C.
Mayor Wood. Mayor Wood.
Item C, please.
Mayor Wood, I'm afraid you have to address the point of order
Councillor,
and put it
Council-
to the council to make a decision on that.
Councillor Facio, you are out of order.
I'm not out of order, sir. I'm asking you to
Look.
present the out of order question to the council. Council has to pass a resolution as per the community
Councillor
charter.
Facio, you are out of order.
As per the community charter.
Councillor Facio, you're out of order.
I'm not out of order, Mayor Wood. I'm just asking you.
Look, this is the last time, and if we're gonna go through this again, let's go through it.
Once again, Mayor Wood, you cannot you cannot
Councillor
remove
Vidal.
an agenda item once the
Councillor
agenda
Vidal.
has been approved.
Councillor Vidal, you're out of order.
You need to rule on the point of order,
Councillor
Mayor
Vidal,
Wood.
I ruled on your order. If you continue, I will remove you.
What was,
I will remove you from this meeting if you
What?
continue.
what's the ruling on the point
The
of order?
ruling was that we continue on.
That's not a ruling on the
That
point of
is
order.
the
I've
ruling,
called a
Councillor.
point of order.
Councillor Vidal, you're ordered removed from this meeting.
I'm not leaving the meeting,
Please
Mayor
remove
Wood.
yourself from this
I
meeting.
am not leaving the
Councillor
meeting.
Vidal,
I am not leaving the meeting.
you've been ordered removed from this meeting.
For what reason?
Thank you, Counselor.
You do not have the floor.
Order, please, Counselor.
I
You do not
object.
have the floor.
I am not
You
leaving the
do
meeting.
not have the floor, Counselor.
Please do not raise your voice to Councillor Vidal, please. It's disrespectful.
Order, please. Counselor Vidal, you've been ordered removed.
I'm not leaving the meeting unless you give me a valid reason.
Do I have a move for adjournment? Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Jackson, moved by myself. Call the question. All in favor for adjournment? Opposed? Adjournment fails. Okay. Fails with Counselor Jackson, Vidal, and Facio opposed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to clarify one thing. I know we're gonna move on to the next item. But when Counselor Allen asked for a point of order, you granted that. So when this game is played, it's gotta be played fairly. And so just remember that in the future, if you continue to give him the point of order, you're gonna have to give that to other council members. Thank you.
I respect your tone, Counselor, and the point of order was given by Counselor Vidal. She was given a response. That was my decision. She can yell point of order all she wants. The decision was made. We move on,
Then
Counselor.
I call the point of order and I will call an appeal on the point of order, Mayor Wood.
That would have been the smart thing to have done, but you have already been ejected from this meeting, Counselor.
I'm calling point of order and an appeal on the point of order.
You're not in the meeting, Counselor. You
I
have been
am-
ordered removed.
I am not leaving the meeting, Mayor Wood.
That would have been the logical thing to have done, which is if you follow the community charter, you should have requested an appeal. You did not request an appeal. I asked you and gave you an opportunity. You have been ordered removed.
Please move on with the rest of the agenda.
Mayor Wood, may I make a recommendation that this gets referred back to staff and moved to a future meeting, and I can work with all of the issues that you have with this code of conduct, so we can move on with this agenda, please.
We can move on with the agenda. All we need is Counselor Vidal to leave. We can continue and we will just ignore. She has been deemed removed from the meeting.
Mayor Wood, I
Yes.
believe that requires,
Nine,
to be removed from the meeting, I believe that requires a motion of
Order, please.
council.
order, please. It does not require a motion.
I will continue speaking, Mayor Wood.
Okay, so then we can't continue with the meeting then. Sorry, Council. I will call one more time. Counselor Jackson, are you willing for adjournment?
I'd like to get through the rest of the agenda if we possibly can.
Then Counselor Vidal has to be quiet or remove herself from the meeting. to the Chief Administrative Officer. Moving on to item C, please. The rezoning application of 421 Emerald.
I'll just go straight to the recommendation.
Please.
Recommendation in the zoning bylaw or zoning amendment bylaw number 1204, 2024 be introduced and given first reading. And that zoning amendment bylaw number 1204, 2024 be given second reading. And that staff be authorized to set up a public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw number 1204, 2024.
Do I have a mover?
I move, Mayor Wood.
Moved by Councillor Facio, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion on this? Councillor Allen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So we're upzoning a home in the R1 zone, the single family zone, to R3 to create, it looks like 2 lots, lot 1 and lot 2. Will each of those lots be able to accommodate a duplex in R3? Resulting in 4 dwelling units on that corner lot?
Staff like to report.
Sorry, I don't know who's feeding back.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor Wood, through you to Councillor Allen, without our contract planner here, I wouldn't be able to speak to that.
Yeah, well, that's an important concern to me because, I mean, if we're going to, the people who have their homes in that R1 zone enjoy the fact that they're single family homes. And anytime that you move in and you create a much higher density, it does affect the neighborhood. And I have a concern about that because all of our nice statements in our OCP, et cetera, talk about creating quality neighborhoods and peaceful and quiet neighborhoods. But once you move in with one of them and grant a rezoning up from R1 to R3, it's hard to say no to the next guy and the next guy, and then the whole thing changes. And I don't see our official community plan as contemplating Emerald and Diamond going into a higher density area. So I'm not sure this is supported by our OCP at all. But I just have a concern because I've seen other homes being built in the village that look innocuous enough, and then all of a sudden there's 4 dwellings in there instead of the 2 that we thought were going to happen. And I'm afraid this might be happening again. So I'm very reserved about supporting this without a more complete explanation of what's actually happening here. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Yeah, I believe this is for an R3 for 2 homes to go on this lot. Diamond, for some of us who lived here a long time, I mean, used to be mostly majority of RVs, modular homes down there. And there's actually a modular home right next to this suggested two parcel site. So I think it would be upgrading the residential area rather than the downgrading. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Ready for a call on the motion, please.
Okay, so the recommendation, the motion is that zoning amendment bylaw number 1204, 2024 be introduced and given first reading, and that zoning amendment bylaw number 1204, 2024 be given second reading, and that staff be authorized to set up a public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw number 1204, 2024. So call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion fails. Councillor Allen and the mayor opposed. You've been ordered removed, Councillor. We're continue on with the meeting here. The next item is item D. To Chief Financial Officer, want to do this one? Just a recommendation, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. This is for adoption of the tax rate bylaw, and it's just for adoption, basically, so there's no report.
Moved by Counselor Allen, seconded by Counselor Jackson. Discussion on this? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. New business, Counselor Facio.
Thank you, Mayor. What I think is the only, I think there's a mistake here. The first bullet, additional no parking signage. Now, what I said was that the parking signage on the Coombe should have the extra fire hazard signs attached to them. We already have no parking signage along the Coombs, as you very well know. I just spent, instead of spending money on more posts, we could attach them like they are now at the intersections, the fire hazard signs on there. That's what I meant by that. And to contact the private acreage south of Cottonwood Avenue regarding creation of a buffer zone in that area, which they should have if we're moving ahead with this plan. And of course, I believe, I'm assuming that a report is coming back from staff regarding how the costs for this proposed sensors, how they're going to come about. So that's my new business recommendation.
Okay, I'm gonna split them up because I think they're a little, they're quite different in their own way. So your first motion here is to, and you want to change the wording of this here. Can you tell me the wording of that, Councillor Facio?
Add additional fire hazard signs to the existing no parking signs.
Fire hazard signs to existing. Yeah, yes, you will. Existing. So that was moved by Councillor Facio and seconded by Councillor Allen. Any further discussion on that? Call the question. So all in favor of adding the additional fire hazard signs to the existing signs along Gomes Drive? Opposed? Nobody opposed. Passes unanimously. The next item here was there was a motion from Councillor Facio to contact the owners of the private acreage south of Cottonwood Avenue regarding the creation of a buffer zone in that area. So that's moved by Councillor Facio. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion on this one.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Facio, can I ask you to turn your mic off, please?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think that this is well intended, but no matter how big that buffer zone is, it can be 100 feet wide or 200 feet wide. It's not going to make a darn bit of difference if you have an ember storm in the east sector, because those embers they crossed Okanagan Lake last year, folks. They will go for miles. So a buffer zone will be no help whatsoever in reducing the fire risk to the northeast corner of the village. And I really think that what we really should be doing is going after those owners and saying, under our unsightly premises or untidy premises or dangerous premises by law, you are required to take out all that fuel that's on your land that's creating a hazard for the community. And I'd much prefer to see that kind of action, because that may do something in that if you cleaned up that 67 acres and get rid of all the fuel there, it might give the fire department a chance to stop the fire from spreading along the ground in that location. A buffer zone itself is not going to do a darn thing, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Facio. Did you?
Just, I'll stick with that, Mayor Wood. Is the buffer zone to me is a clearing. So obviously, any fuel or trees would have to be cleared to create that buffer zone.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Worship. I think Mr. Allen hasn't been to the back of Cottonwood Avenue recently. I live there, and those are old deciduous trees. They're not coniferous. Most of them are on their last legs, all behind the whole area. It's all bog. Now, there are some further down the south, but the area all around Cottonwood Avenue, all there probably 300 or 400 yards in, you don't have a lot. It looks like a lot, but there isn't a lot there to burn. I've been on these kind of fires as a firefighter, and they don't jump those kind of trees. They go from big trees or coniferous trees. So I think the idea of cleaning it up is a good idea. It's a good step. Thank you.
Thank you. I personally just don't like the way it's worded here. I think I hear the intent. I think we all have the same intent, but this motion, I think, can be taken so many other ways. So I can't support this motion, but maybe we can create another, a new motion that would follow something, but let's just see what the vote is here. So everyone's had an opportunity to speak, so I'm ready to call the question. I'm gonna read it out. So the motion is that the village contact the owners of the private acreage south of Cottonwood Avenue regarding the creation of a buffer zone in that area. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed? Motion pass. Excuse me, motion passes with the mayor opposed. So the last one here, this recommendation here hasn't been moved or seconded. Before I do that, Councillor Facio, it's my understanding here now that we've already given staff to go ahead to do the sensors and to proceed with that. So the only thing that I can see from this here now is we're talking about the payment portion of it. Is that a fair
Correct.
statement? So a question then to the Chief Administrative Officer. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I just wanted to advise council that we've engaged Sensinet staff, and that they're going to be coming to the village on next Thursday. I think it's the 14th. Forgive me if it's the wrong date, but they're going to come and provide a presentation to us. We're going to walk the site if they deem it necessary, and then we're going to get some final hard costs for council to consider to add to our budget, because we'll need a motion of council now that our budget has been approved.
So then, Councillor Facio, I'm going to suggest then that we just, are you comfortable with just deleting this one?
Yes.
Okay, so the last bullet will be, there's no motion on the table for that one. Okay, thank you, Councillor. So we're over to the next item here, which was new business from Councillor Vidal. Councillor Vidal has been deemed to be out of this meeting, but I would have ruled it out of order anyhow. Community charter for section 116A and 115B of the council procedural bylaw. It's the mayor's responsibility to introduce bylaws, not a member of council. Next order of business is questions from the public. Any questions from the public, please? Gary, can you turn your mic on?
No.
Yep, you're good. You're good.
Mayor and Council, Gary Webster, 520 McCombs Drive. I'd just like to point out that I was reading on their Fire Smart on the website where it states that in a wildfire, that embers can fly up to 2 kilometers on average. But when you look at our map for the IWDPA, it doesn't include all of Harrison. And I can guarantee you that if embers start flying, they're flying all over Harrison. And I think maybe with the new developments that are coming into Harrison, they're not going to be in those zones. And I think maybe the whole of Harrison should be deemed in the IWDPA so that these people will be protected, and also how it'll affect our insurances. If you don't live in those zones or you do live in the zones, I mean, the insurance companies are going to look at this and go, ooh, this is a tinderbox waiting for something drastic or something bad to happen to the people. And if they might just, up everybody's insurance, maybe not give you insurance if you're a new resident and you're trying to buy a home, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I just don't look at this, I look at this map and then I read the Fire Smart and it just doesn't make sense to me. There's glaring, and is that gonna put the citizens at risk? Or is this council putting citizens at risk?
Just before you leave, does any counselor want to speak to that? With the chief?
Just for clarification, you're talking about the new official community plan and the interface fire hazard area that was identified there under a development permit area. Is that correct? So it is the OCP that you're talking about, the new OCP with the grid? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly. Map number 2.
good. Thank you.
The chief and Gary, just 1 second. I'll try and get you. I think you kind of got a question here. Did the chief administrative officer want to make any comment on it?
The only comment that I would say is that the map that is included in the OCP is for future development, whereas the Fire Smart program is for existing development, and it's meant and designed to prepare people with their homes, making them fire smart, pulling away fuels away from their homes. So it's a bit different, and I respect what you're saying is that embers do come from 2 kilometers away, and I understand that. But if you can build your resiliency in your own property, then that means that it's through the Fire Smart program or Fire Smarting, then that is just adding more resiliency to your property.
I just want to add, go ahead, I'll let you.
Should we not be building or having our developers build that into as we speak now? Because if embers are gonna fly, I mean, we need to, I would say, protect these people now, not later.
Thank you. Thank you, and I just want to answer just before you run away here. I think it's really important. I mean, council has just made a huge step at the last meeting at putting these high-tech sensors in there so that we actually have some advanced knowledge of a potential fire. I think that's nothing makes me more happier than for council to have agreed to make that happen. So I really hope to see that happen. Moving on to the next part, what can we do? Our village, I mean, we're stuck right between 2 beautiful mountains full of trees. I mean, we all move here, I think, because we love that. So it's extremely important. When I looked at the map, I see your frustration, and there are people that down the street, on the same application, that if they want to go get a building permit, they don't have to apply the same regulations that you would have to do to take a building permit out on your building. So there's a lot of confusion and I've seen the drawings and I question myself, why are some and why not others? You hear all kinds of different people comments from hydro lines. Well, it's none of that stuff's true. It is because it is. And no one's going to tell you why, but it is what it is. So I totally support that this whole village should be Fire Smart built. If we put a new roof on, it should be to a Fire Smart standard. So I personally believe the whole village should be designated as Fire Smart. I think that all of us have to absorb the same costs for the insurance. It's not fair for just certain designated ones, because again, some homes are and some aren't. And it makes absolutely no logic in my opinion. So what council can do, the OCP was passed, that map was actually adopted and approved by this council. So it's this council that said that map is good. It is only this council that can say this map is not good and we want to make an amendment to it. So council actually has to make that motion. So a member of council, all they have to say is that we want that map changed so that the whole village is. I just need someone to say it.
When would you like that?
You can make the motion right now, Counselor.
Well, I'd certainly be in favor of a motion to revisit the mapping around the wildfire hazard area identified in the OCP, because even I, sitting here as a councillor, can't make any sense of it. I don't know if it was put together by a planner or by somebody who actually knows something about wildfire and wildfire behavior. And I would rather hope it's the latter, but I see no evidence of that having happened. And that may lead us to say, if we're going to deal with this as a hazard, let's deal with the whole village, not selective portions. Thank you.
Mayor, may I just add some clarification to that? I do want to remind council and the public that that document has been in the public's eye for over a year. And this is the first time that we're hearing it, and I respect Mr. Webster. He has brought it forward in recent weeks, but that map has been around for a very long time, and now it's coming forward. So, and I'm not saying the council shouldn't consider it, but I'm just reminding council that that's been out in the public eye for a very long time.
Order, please, order. So Councillor Allen, that was a motion on the table to refer. Would you like to repeat your motion, Councillor Allen?
Need to repeat my motion?
Yes, please.
I move that the council instruct the staff to revisit the mapping contained in the official community plan concerning wildfire hazard areas with a view towards including the whole village in the hatched development permit area. Thank you.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Allen, and do I have a seconder for that? I'll second that for conversation. Have any further discussion on that? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Wood. I don't disagree with the discussion that's been going on, but I think there's a discussion that we should have a special meeting to deal with this. So we can have the designated maps, the OCP in front of us and look at it in an overall picture, not just it's extremely unusual to make a recommendation from questions from the public. They should be done in a formal, correct way so we can make a constructive decision on this. Now, this came up quickly, I will say it, at LMLGA regarding the Fire Smart. Again, I will repeat what I've repeated many times. The responsibility also is on the shoulders of the residents. It is your home. You have to look after it. You have to take care of how you're going to maintain the safety of your own home, whether it's for a fire, a wind, rain damage, or flooding, whatever the case may be. That is your responsibility. And we've had sessions on this regarding Fire Smart. Our fire department have the tools that you can buy if you wish to protect the roof of your house with the sprinklers as well. So it's a complex situation. We decided to move forward as all the discussion was with the east sector and McCombs. And as you've just pointed out, Mayor Wood, we've moved forward with decision to speak and see what the sense of people are going to come up with in a week's time and then bring it back to council. So we've taken the first step to look at protecting the village. And we will, I'm sure we will take other steps. The new building code is coming into operation. I'm not sure when, but that will also be.
Councillor Facio.
Yeah, sorry.
Facio. Thank you. Thank you. So the motion on the table is that staff revisit the mapping of the OCP to include all of the village. That was moved in second. Any further discussion on that? I'm going to call the question all in. Go ahead, Councillor.
I mean, I think if discussion is out of order because I, as a counselor, don't just represent Cottonwood Avenue, I represent the whole village. I don't care what the map says. From my point of view, the whole village has to be bought in and protected it. A map's not going to make any difference. What's this color of that? Well, my house is excluded. Fire isn't going to go around it. So the map isn't going to make any difference. It's what we do by preventing the fires and making sure that people understand that, Councillor Fassett said, you could get the fire people come along, they'll put 2 sprinklers on your roof. I think it only cost me $250. I feel very good about doing that, and we're doing it. You have to look after yourself. Rechanging a map, Mr. Mayor, is not going to do anything. Thank you.
Thank you. So the map itself is what designates, if I go into the village office right now and say, I want to do an addition to my house and take a building permit out, they're going to say, well, you're going to have to upgrade that house, maybe you have to put a metal roof on, whatever the requirements are, because it's in that zone. This has nothing to do about going around someone's house. These people that live in certain homes have regarding that map, it dictates the requirement of what they need when they go and get their building permits or do development. The people that are not in it, the person right next door can go and take a permit out, a development out. They can put Duroid shingles on, vinyl siding. So what this does is it would designate that all of the homes in the village would have to be done with fire smart materials. I think it's a fantastic start to get this village to get us to one of the best places with regards to the interface fire prevention. So all this motion is again to change. So instead of being a number of homes, it would be all homes within the village would have to be built with fire smart materials. And I think that is absolutely the way to go. So I'm going to call the question. So the motion again was that staff revisit the mapping in the OCP to include all of the village, sorry. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes with Councillor Fassio opposed. Just, we've got someone right here, Councillor. Yeah. There we go.
Kelly Slanga, 637 Schooner Place, addressing the fire thing. So the density that you're proposing behind me, because I live there, I'm going to have them all behind me. In one of the center cores of Harrison creates a fire bomb. Am I too short? So that means that no matter what fire prevention I do to my house or what I do, all those embers coming into that densification on that narrow street in that area of the heart of Harrison. So you're going to put all these places in. So when you're considering giving them the zoning for this, think about that. All the people on this side, all the people on that side, the one route in, one route, and that's it. That's all we got. One route in, one route out. Then you add the tourists. Then you've got this massive development that you're proposing for Pine. And you got the mountains on either side and they're coming in. How do we fight that? There's no point in putting a sprinkler on the top of my house when that thing towers over mine and it's going to be blowing everything over when those embers start to hit that center. Consider that when you're zoning them for the densification, the people that are on either side of them that now have to live with that fire fear of that igniting. And how do we get out? How do our tourists get out? Thank you.
Mayor Wood, we are fastly approaching 10 p.m. here.
No, motion to adjourn.
My name is Gabriel Thornton. I live at 336 Chestnut Avenue. And it was mentioned tonight by Councillor Fassio that we're responsible for our properties. Well, guess what? We have a fellow that has property behind us, never maintained. His weeds, his crap is coming into my yard. I'm 70 years old. Do you think I can keep cleaning up his mess? I put a complaint into the village. Nothing has got done. And the second point is, yes, we bought the sprinklers, what good are the sprinklers gonna do when you're thinking of putting in all that development on Pine Avenue? How much water are we gonna have to even put the sprinklers on and guarantee that our houses will be safe? Because as you remember last year, 3 pumps went down. Thank God there was no fire because we would have all died. So are we going to build infrastructure, another watershed to accommodate all this growth? Or are we going to just be left to fend for ourselves? Thank you.
To adjourn,